A Greek hero fights a series of monsters, including the dreaded Gorgon, to win the woman he loves. This is Clash of the Titans. Welcome to Movie Time Machine Monster Closet Edition, your retro movie review podcast where we take movies from the past and relive them in the present. This week's movie is Clash of the Titans, directed by Desmond Davis, written by Beverly Cross, released on June 12th, 1981. I'm your Time Machine host, Chad, and joining me today is our horror expert, the monster of madness, Jamie. How you doing?
Good. I like that new title. I might have to put that on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah? All right. Yeah. Do it, man.
Bestowed upon me by...
It'll drive the clicks.
Yeah, there we go.
The clicks and the likes.
That's all anyone's after these days, right?
That's right. Got to get them clicks, man. So, thank you for joining me for this Monster Closet Edition episode of Clash of the Titans, where you and I get the riff about our favorite monster movies, horror movies of fantasy, horror genre, if you like. So, really quick, what have you been up to?
Oh, man, I have been... Well, we just moved, so I'm unpacking the house. Trying to, anyway. I wouldn't say it's a losing battle. I would say it's more of a slow-moving river. But, hey, we're getting there. And
like a glacier.
There we go. That's the proper geological reference point I was looking for. Yeah. It's a glacier. But no, other than that, let's see. I've been kind of slowing my movie and TV diet, which is fine. I've been reading this book. It's do you know the podcast Hardcore History, right?
Yeah. Yep. It's a Dan Carlin book.
Yeah. His book is called The End Is Always Near. And he sounds pretty on brand, does it not?
Yes.
But he's just kind of chronicling the fall of civilizations from the Bronze Age is where I'm at right now. So he goes from the Bronze Age kind of through modern times. He'll probably get to World War II and the military-industrial complex. But yeah, really been enjoying that. I'm probably, yeah, I'm not very far, probably 50 pages, but it's really interesting because he published it in 2019, and he kind of has these broad sweeping statements of how societies can get complacent, and he talks about soft societies, which is, I kind of think, fair to say about the United States right now. Just we've been in peacetime for a while after the Iraq War. I know that there's still troops overseas there, as well as Afghanistan, other places, but broadly speaking, we're a peacetime country. And he just kind of talks about other factors that can kind of bring down a civilization, well, that have in the past. And he mentions pandemics and plagues, which I don't think he was calling anything in 2019. Probably not when he wrote the book, but it's really, it's kind of fascinating to read now, just kind of where we are with COVID and how we didn't prepare quite as well as we should have, and kind of the consequences we're dealing with now. So not exactly fun reading, but definitely timely. What about you, Chad?
Well, not, man, I haven't been reading as much lately. Like the end of the summer, I got a Kindle. So I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to read the Foundation trilogy. So I whipped through the first book pretty quick. Really enjoyed it. So I started the second book, Foundation and Empire, and getting through that one. Then I just kind of stopped. So I've been in like a month lull where I haven't read anything. So I need to get back to that because I'm really enjoying the space politics of that. And I'm really seeing, where people say like that's a big influencer of a lot of the sci-fi that we've probably had over the last 20 to 30 years. So really enjoying that.
What is the Foundation trilogy? I'm not familiar with that.
It's Isaac Asimov.
Oh, yep. Know him.
Yep, it's a lot of, Star Wars, I think, pulls heavy a lot from this series. So even there's like the religion aspect of it where I was like, oh, this is where I can kind of see where he, kind of created like the Jedi, or the idea of like building a new empire. And I was like, oh, I can kind of see where he did kind of built this for like the prequel trilogy. So it's more of like a political space drama, but it's really cool. I'm not very great at describing these things, but
Well, I think the
some people
political
have.
space drama really kind of took hold for the prequel trilogy. So
Yes, it does much better in the book form, I think. I so yeah, some people told me like they had a hard time getting through it, but I enjoyed it quite. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I would at least give it a try. If you can get through the first book, then you're golden. So because what I've read in the second book so far is kind of more of the same. So but kind of different catalyst
I see. Sounds
in
like
the
politics in general. More of the same,
yes,
but different catalysts.
yes. But yeah, I gotta. What's the name of that Carlin book again? I gotta write that down. I need to
Oh
check that
yeah,
out.
it's called "The End Is Always Near." It was
Okay.
one of my so we last year for Christmas, my family we kind of switched it up because we're like, man, everyone has a lot of gifts. We don't really need more stuff, but um I guess in Iceland it's the country I think that publishes the most written material. They have a lot of authors, poets, what have you on the island. So what they do Christmas Eve, this might be a fun idea for any of our listeners this year, is they will just exchange a book with one another and read that on Christmas Eve, and that will kind of be their gifts. I maybe they go out all out for Christmas too. I
Yeah.
don't I don't know. I'm not Icelandic, but we kind of adopted that idea, and yeah, that was the book I got last year. So I'm just getting to it now, but that's okay.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Let's get on with the topic of the week. This week's film is Clash of Titans, the 1981 edition. Is it 81 or 82 now?
IMDb
Uh,
says 81. Your doc has 82, but
okay, we'll go with 81. Because I just read it earlier today. It said 81 as well. Wait, Clash of Titans, the 1981 version, and I kind of want to do maybe a quick a comparison too between this one and the 2010 version at the end of this pod as well. Quick, I just want to kind of get your input on that as well. But yeah, starring Harry Hamlin, Laurence Olivier, and Burgess Meredith. Probably most famous for Rocky, Grumpy Old Men, and he also played the Penguin in the old Batman TV show from it was like late 60s or early 70s.
that's right, the Adam
Didn't it?
West era of
Yes.
Batman.
Yes.
Yeah,
Which is I remember that when I was on syndication all the time. That was always fun to watch
pow.
before we had the Tim Burton Batman, which changed everything for me as far as Batman goes.
Agreed.
Around that same area.
I like Burgess Meredith just as like the perpetual coach and tutor of heroes,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Yes.
Really kind of carved a
Yes.
niche for himself there.
That's right. Yeah. I like that comparison.
Hmm. You got Rocky, you got Perseus.
Yeah. I like that. Did not pick up on that. Good call, my friend. Good
Hmm.
call. All right. So, box office, it's numbers I found here. It said 9 million or 15 million, which is a huge difference.
That's a lot of millions in
It's like
between.
about 13, 14. Oh, 9 million or 15 million, but even if you go 15 million, it brought in 70 million to box office. So, um, it didn't tank, but it wasn't a commercial success at all. You say, um, Metacritic, it has a 59% score. IMDb, the average is 6.9. Rotten Tomatoes, the critic reception score is 68% with the audience score of 70. So that's actually a little higher than um, I was thinking it would be with this film. So, but yeah, film that came out in 1981 this is a film that, in my memory, when I go back and remember it, it always seemed like this was a much older film than it was. Um, I think until recently, I thought this movie had come out in the late 60s or early 70s, so, like, around the same time as, the other Harryhausen classics, like like, The Seven Voyages Sinbad and the Jason and the Argonauts films, but, um, from that standpoint, this film looks quite dated for a film that came out in 1981. It came out a year after The Empire Strikes Back, and, you're around the same time as, like, The Thing and E.T., so from that
Almost a
standpoint.
year to the day, by the way. I just checked. Empire was like June 20th, 1980, and then Clash was June 12th, 81.
Yes. Wow, that's crazy.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, as far as I just want to I'll cut right to it. Like as far as a great film or good film, I don't know. This is a movie to where I love very much the monsters and like the quest. Everything else is just kind of like whatever. Um it's like it's not like the best story. It's not always the easiest to follow.
Well, I was just gonna say back to when you said it about being dated. So we, like I said, we just bought a home, and while we were looking, I remember we looked at one house. I won't say where it was to spare the residents of that neighborhood, but we walked in. I remember my realtor said, "Wow, this house was dated the minute it was finished." Like we walked in the front, and I can't explain it. Just the layout felt a little off. It was newer for the time, but I knew what he meant when he said it, and I couldn't help but think of that when I started watching this movie again because I did the same thing. I did the decade check. I was like, wait, this was 81. And like you said, yeah, I've seen Jason and the Argonauts. It feels like the same movie, but what, like 20 years later or something like that.
Yeah,
So
which is
yeah, this
crazy.
film was dated the minute it was built.
But with that said, the interaction in this movie with live actors and stop motion creatures that are, models that are, you know, maybe a foot or a couple feet tall, and blending those two techniques together, um, I think is that interaction is done quite well. Just everything around it is not very good. But again, for me, like anything Harryhausen with the stop motion creatures, that just doesn't. Maybe just me personally and like my nostalgia for it, but that just doesn't seem to like. It seems to age well versus a lot of other special effect creatures maybe in that same era,
I think
but
so
maybe
too. I
say
think I
yeah.
think it's part of its charm. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Oh no, charm. That's like that is a perfect word. There is a
yeah,
lot of charm.
there's a podcast I listen to, and one of the hosts has coined this term, which I think is it's just great. It's he calls it cinematic nostalgia disorder, and it's for films kind of like this, but the ones he references, like the Monster Squad, or I guess for the millennial generations, it would be like Hook, Steven Spielberg's Hook,
Okay.
which I think are great movies, but don't exactly hold up well to modern audiences. Or you put a kid in front of it, and they're like, "Wow, what was that?"
Right.
And you're like, "No, trust me, it's really good. Like, did we see the same movie? It's really good, right?" And they're like, "No." But so I think maybe there's a little bit of that going on. But I agree with you. I think yeah, it's part of its charm. The models, it can get a little disorienting when they go back and forth. Like I'm thinking a lot of the Calibus scenes, where he's like capturing Pegasus or fighting with Perseus, and some of them I'm like, you have the actor in makeup. Like, why are we going to
Yeah.
claymation here? Like, you have both
Yeah.
the actors. Let them duke it out.
Yeah, there is some scenes like even like I'm just looking at some images here. Even like the scene where Calabas goes up and the bag with Medusa's head is hanging on a tree, and he goes up and he slices the bag and the blood seeps out and like the scorpions drink it or whatever, and then we get the giant scorpion battle. But it's like, yeah, that part you could have just done the actor, right? Unless they wanted to get like, um, maybe like the full bodysuit or something, or like there's some pretty cool animation, I guess, with this tail too, which I can kind of see Harryhausen with wanting to capture maybe like the life of like this creature or something, kind of judging by his other works and that he's done. So I can kind of see that as well. But there are some kind of weird camera cuts too, where, you know, I think make some of the scenes weird, but if you go back and if you're like a child watching this, like it doesn't really, those are things they don't think most kids would pick up on. But I remember this was, did you watch this film at all? Like in high school for any, or like middle school for any kind of like, uh, Greek like literature or um, Greek mythology.
I don't remember doing that. No, I so when we first saw it, it was a film my dad saw and wanted us to see. So my only memories of it are renting it from Blockbuster repeatedly, and that was a different time too when you had to go to the movie store, and that was the movie we wanted to see that night. So if someone else had it or it wasn't there, we had to, change your plans and pick a different movie, and there was always anguish because yeah, I remember renting this one definitely more than once.
Yeah.
But no, did you watch it for school?
Um, yeah, I remember watching it for school a couple times, but that wouldn't have been the first time that I had seen it. Um, I remember there used to be, well, I remember seeing it the most when I lived in Texas. So I was anywhere between the ages of 5 and 10. But there used to be like Monster Movie Sunday or something like that. And that's the day that I would get my Godzilla and, your Sinbad movies, the Clash of the Titans, any kind of random large animal, large rabbit, large ant, you know, um, movie like Them about the gigantic radioactive ants.
Great
So
movie. That one's
yeah,
great. It kind of gets a little unwatchable for me just because of the sound they have for the ants. It's that really
oh
high
yeah,
pitched
yep, yep,
radio tune.
yeah,
That if I had any complaint with that movie, that's it. It probably would like send the dogs of your house in a frenzy.
yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, other than that, that's a very watchable movie. Really entertaining.
But those are always really good. Um,
Do you want to just give like an intro on Ray Harryhausen? Because I think he's kind of the reason this movie exists and probably the biggest keeper of its legacy, wouldn't you say?
yeah, and probably the only thing that really gives it legs, like I again, I think his creations are, what give it, as you said, the charm. I think that is, that has like keeps this movie up. I think without that, um, I don't know how they would have done this movie. It may have looked, I guess, maybe even more dated. I don't know, like how they would have done the monsters. I can't really think of anything comparable around this era, except for maybe like a Star Wars that maybe would have done something that maybe would have looked as good. Again, I'm coming from like the monster standpoint of it, but yeah, and this, I mean, to me, like I said here, it's kind of it's the end of an era too with this film because this is his last big film. Um,
Yeah, I think he retired after this
Harryhausen,
one,
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
and
And
yeah, he gets lots of accolades and has influenced um, probably a lot of the directors that maybe influenced. I know for sure, like my childhood as well. You talk about your Steven Spielbergs and um, like the special effects people that did movies like like The Thing and Jurassic Park, um, which I want to recommend right now. There is a really cool Harryhausen documentary that right now at this time, November 2020, it's on Prime, Amazon Prime, which is kind of a good look at just kind of his history and the work that he did. But um, yeah, it's kind of a legacy. I think I don't really, as far as impact on film and what he was able to do, I don't think there's really anyone close to it in that era that's has made movies feel that way. And for me too, like one movie that kind of stuck out that's kind of different from the other monster films is the Earth versus the Flying Saucers movie, where he did the stop motion for the flying saucers.
I've never seen that one.
It's really good. I mean, I remember it most from when it was like the Super Mario Brothers game that came out on Game Boy years back. So like in the 90s, I just remember there was this advertisement with Mario, and I think in one part of the game you're flying some kind of spaceship. Well, in this advertisement for that part of the game, that would cut to people running, and it was like scenes from Earth versus the Flying Saucers, with like the famous scene of like the UFO like crashing into the Washington Monument. Um,
Oh,
but
I
just kind of like, yeah, where like he said, like most um alien or UFO films at that time, it would just have like something that was shaped like a platter, or a disc, and it was just hanging from a single screen or string. Um, versus he did like stop motion, where he had kind of like this. It almost looked like a fan that kind of swirled around the kind of center of the spacecraft. The kind of like, well, if it was like an anti gravity thing, or he explains it best in the documentary. But it's like, oh, that's why that movie. I mean, that movie isn't great again, but why those flying saucers in that film look the best, like the best flying saucers that I'd ever seen from that era.
and I have his Wikipedia page pulled up too. There's a reference here too. It says that Tim Burton's film Mars Attacks, he does a tribute to Harryhausen when the Martians take down the Washington Monument in that movie.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, forgot
Yeah.
about that.
So I thought that was a pretty cool call out. And does the documentary go into his participation in faking the moon landing with Stanley Kubrick? Do they cover that at all?
No, what? Fill me in.
No, I'm just BSing. No,
Okay,
yeah, no,
okay.
we landed
It's
on the
like
moon.
no.
We landed on the moon.
Yeah, you could take a telescope. You can go outside on a night with a full moon, and you could still see the lunar lander on the surface of the moon. So,
Right. My favorite piece of evidence too is the YouTube video of Buzz Aldrin just like cold clocking
oh
conspiracy
yes,
theorists.
that is
That's like all the
awesome.
proof I
That is
need.
awesome. Well, then you have somebody like it was in the latest Joe Rogan when he had Alex Jones back on. I was just like, yeah, yeah. So actually, he was Armstrong was on another show and actually came out and said that, oh yeah, the moon's landing is fake. Was the entire thing was fake, and it was just holding the secrets to protect the U.S. government. Some shit like that. It's
Oh,
like, you
Alex.
drunk ass piece of shit.
Yeah, that's a fun story, but definitely not true.
No, no. Also, Ray Harryhausen. If you don't know, while you're listening to this, and while we're kind of gushing over him now, is the creator of monsters and mythical creatures from movies like The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Clash of the Titans, which we're talking about,
The
20
original
Million Miles to Earth. What's that?
the original Mighty Joe Young.
Oh yes, yep. I did not. I did. That's something too I learned from watching that documentary, is that I didn't know that Mighty Joe Young was that old, and yeah, it came out a few years after the original King Kong. So, which I think he talks about how he wanted to like kind of give more life to that creature by like going and like watching like how the animals like walked and paced around in zoos and stuff like that. So, um, I found that quite interesting. Let's see here. Did you so like movies like the Sinbad movies and Jason and the Argonauts, were those favorite of yours?
So I
Childhood favorites at all?
I never saw Sinbad, but Jason and the Argonauts was definitely in that blockbuster rotation as well. I do remember watching that one, and the famous scene there is when they fight off the army of the undead skeletons, and
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, he just his influence can't be overstated because when I see things like Game of Thrones, when there's that scene when Bran and Mira and Jojen are just getting to the one-eyed raven's tree, and
Yes.
they
Yep.
pop up out of the ground. That was the first thing I thought of. It was Jason and
Yep.
the
Was
Argonauts.
exactly same here. Same here.
Yeah.
I remember too, like for me, it was a struggle. Like again, that's like a movie I caught like on the Monster Movie Sunday thing, and I would always catch that movie, but I would never know, or would always forget what the name of that movie was, because I for the long time thought it was a Sinbad movie, right?
hmm
But yeah, Jason and Argonaut. So
Yeah.
great
Sinbad
movie. I
had the
think
cooler name, but Jason had the cooler named gang, the Argonauts.
yes, the Argonauts.
Yeah.
And the what is it? That's the one too, like where the front of their ship, it was the face of, was it like Athena, or is like it was one of like the Greek gods, I think. And I remember there was like scenes where like it was like talking to him, but there was
Yeah.
like, that would always creep me out. And maybe it's like part of like the color palette of that era, but um yeah, again, I think that movie right now is free on YouTube. The full movie.
Ooh, yeah. So for those of you who
I just
haven't seen it, check it out. It's very similar to Clash of the Titans.
Is that the one? Is that Jason Argonauts too, where it's like the giant like bronze statue like comes to life as well?
Oh man, it has been so many years since I've seen it. I honestly couldn't tell you. I remember the golden fleece and I remember the skeletons, but that's
Yeah,
really all I can recall from that movie.
yeah,
So,
too.
it's
And
possible.
in that documentary, they kind of described how they created that scene with them fighting the skeletons, and they would practice and like choreograph those fights with like people just like wearing like all white, to kind of say like, oh, this is kind of where the skeletons would be. And when they did the final take, it's like all these actors that were like fighting with the swords were doing all those actions with like, they're basically like cloud boxing. Like there was no one there, nothing.
Mhm.
And then Harryhausen had to come in, and then he would do like the stop motion with um, the projected image on the background, and would just do it frame by frame, which is just how crazy, like how much that lines up. And there's, the one thing I was always thinking about when watching this and just kind of reflecting on Harryhausen was how good that they were at getting the actors to like, I'm doing in quotes here, like see like these creatures
Mhm.
and to like battle them for. And I think like just how awful those interactions are in like the prequels for Star Wars. Just like that, like you had all this technology and you couldn't like you couldn't inspire these people to kind of see what you're imagining, versus Harryhausen was, I think, in almost all of his films was able to capture that.
Well, and I think that's true because the greatest battle sequence, if you ask anyone about the prequels, I mean, the best ones are Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul and
Yep.
Anakin versus Obi-Wan at the end of Sith. And it's no coincidence that those are the only ones that are human versus human.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think what you're saying pretty much tracks. And I have a soft spot for the pod races, but I mean your point is well taken.
Yeah, the pod races were pretty cool. I They just need to go out and do something different with that announcer. That was that one always threw me out of the like.
There
And
goes
here comes.
Quadraneros.
Looks like he lost the power coupling. But
It's
anyway,
Skywalker.
you're too good at that.
I've seen him once or twice.
I did the geez, the Phantom Menace. I've seen that one quite a bit because after I went and saw it in the theater like twice, um, somebody gave me like a VHS copy that someone made, like recording it from like a camcorder in a movie theater. So I was like, oh, I had like this like bootleg version of it that I watched like every day for a month or two.
what,
And then I
what
just totally lost like my I just totally lost it after episode 2 came out. Was pretty disappointed with everything, but yeah.
I just love the idea of a bootleg of like one of the worst Star Wars movies.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't even bootleg of Empire.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh I don't know if I would consider it the worst, but
No, I think Clones is the worst. Nope. I Sith. I've recently rewatched the prequels. I think Sith.
yeah, Sith is pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's like long, it's boring.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, we're talking about Harryhausen and Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
Um,
I had a couple of fun early life facts for Harryhausen if you're interested.
yeah, let them rip.
So when he was just kind of starting his career in the 30s and the 40s, he joined the Science Fiction League, which was created by Forrest J. Ackerman, who was a magazine editor and science fiction writer. And he joined that with author Ray Bradbury, who, most famously wrote
Yeah,
Fahrenheit 451. But I just thought it was cool that.
and the Martian Chronicles, right?
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
You're probably right. Yeah, I just the idea that that's what you would do back then. Join the Science Fiction League. Like I would kill for one of those today. Where just a bunch of nerds get together and do whatever takes place in the Science Fiction League. But
yeah, it sounds really cool.
another reference, kind of the time, he was. I think this makes him part of the greatest generation. He served in World War II along with everybody in Hollywood at that time. And he served in the U.S. Army Special Services Division under Colonel Frank Capra, who was the director of films, most famously It's a Wonderful Life, but he also did Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, It Happened One Night, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So just kind of interesting that the amount of networking that probably took place from just the U.S. military in the film industry.
Yeah, yeah, and like I can't go on without saying this. I just when I hear stuff like this, it just makes me think like the level of like sacrifice, you know, for country. Then it makes me think of today. It's like just the level of things we're not willing to sacrifice in the midst of a pandemic. It's just,
Oh,
uh,
totally. It's
you
yeah,
know,
it's not hard to wear a mask. That's the one I do not understand. I
yeah,
granted I don't have to wear it for 8 hours a day, so maybe if you're like a doctor or a nurse complaining to me, that would be more welcome. But
right,
anybody else, I mean, shoot, if you're going to buy
yeah.
groceries, just come on,
Come on, man.
come on.
But anyway, so what do I have here? Cover that. So yeah, just some other accolades here. In 1992, he did win an Academy Award for his overall technical contribution in the film industry. In 2003, he got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and in 2010, he received a Bastards Award, which I thought I had because I forgot what that was. Do you know what a Bastards Award is?
I don't, but I wish I did because it's the most interesting sounding one of the bunch.
He also cut the ribbon on his monsters and creatures exhibit at the Museum of London, um, which while that was open, I wish I would have been able to see that, or if that came stateside, which I don't think it is going on right now. I think it was just a temporary exhibit, but that would have been really cool to see those monsters on display from all the films that he worked on.
So in that spirit, one I guess influential director today that we didn't really talk about, but just occurred to me now. Because you mentioned that exhibit, and I think I may have mentioned this before, but did you ever see Guillermo del Toro's exhibit when he came to the MIA in Minneapolis?
No, no, I missed that.
That was very cool. And
I missed that.
I wonder if this exhibit is anything similar. Did you say it's defunct, or does it still exist in London?
I don't think it still exists. I think it was like a temporary
Ah,
exhibit.
that's too
Yeah.
bad because yeah, I mean if Del Toro ever brings that back, just similarly the way that he cares about monsters and creates them, and they're so clearly from his mind. I mean, he's granted probably referencing other influences and pulling them out, but he does have a style that's very much his own. So I can only imagine that this exhibit must have been something in that spirit. And man, what a shame, because that exhibit was phenomenal. I mean, he had suits from Pacific Rim. He had a couple of the creatures from Pan's Labyrinth, and then just a
Mm,
bunch of like old artwork that he collected throughout the years that he had to buy a second house. Like these are first world famous director problems, but he had to
yeah.
buy a house to store all of his art and models and stuff like that. So,
Crazy.
yeah. Yeah, if that ever
Yeah,
comes
currently
back
right
around,
now
you
the
got to see it.
Harryhausen exhibit is in Scotland right now, it looks like. So um
Okay,
yeah,
put
the
that on the
Scottish
pilgrimage.
National Gallery of Modern Art right now.
Okay, that's going on the post-COVID bucket list.
Yeah. It's oh yeah, from Saturday, yeah, from October 2020 to September 2021. So sweet.
Sweet. Speaking of the monsters, did you want to talk about
Yeah.
them at all? Did you have any favorites or creatures that kind of keep your interest after all these years?
Yeah, the standouts for me are, I mean, the Kraken. I think the Kraken, I don't think is the best, but I think it's the Unleash the Kraken, like that is like stuck in like pop culture, especially movie culture, especially geek culture. That has carried through um other movies as like little one-liners. Now ever since this movie. So gotta love that. I gotta say, I think my favorite character, like monster creation or whatever from this movie is the owl that's created by Hephaestus is Bubo.
Boobo.
Yeah, I love the Bubo the owl. Um, but my favorite monster I think is Medusa in this one. I love that entire scene that um with Medusa. I just like all the kind of creepy still like can look. So
Yeah, I would agree with you too. I think I was watching this, and the Kraken obviously is great. Weirdly sexual. Like we get a lot of Kraken midriff shots there,
oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't remember that. I was like, "Oh man, there's some sort of, you know, uh hidden meaning going on here."
It's
Didn't pick up
ripped.
on that as a kid. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then Medusa, of course. I would agree with you too. I think if I had to pick one that was still super effective and would probably, entrance or terrify a kid, it's probably that, because her makeup holds up really well, and they do a great job of just setting up how lethal she is. And
Yes.
yeah,
Like with like the stone people,
yep,
like kind of leading up to that. Yeah.
yep. The stone people. She's got toxic blood, not unlike Alien, the xenomorph in Alien.
Yeah, oh yeah, yes.
And yeah, so I would agree with you there. I think the one that kind of really captured my imagination this time that I didn't remember from the original viewings when I was a kid was the giant buzzard when he um kind of visits Andromeda in her dream and
Yeah.
takes her to Calibos. I thought that was so cool because I remember reading Greek myths for as long as I can, and some of these archetypes cross over from cultures and you can kind of pick up on them,
Hmm.
the legendary heroes or whatever. But that one just struck me as so unique and an idea that I hadn't really, I couldn't identify in any other sort of, religion or doctrine. Just this buzzard arriving at her bed, leading, or she leads herself into the cage and then bringing her to Calibos's dream. Yeah, I don't know what it was about
Yeah.
that, but that really kind of caught my imagination this time around.
Yeah, same here actually. That I completely forgot about that scene. Um Going back. This is probably the first time I actually sat down and watched this movie from beginning to end. I've always seen like this movie in like clips, or if it'll just be randomly be on, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch this for like 10, 15 minutes, until I get to that one scene I want to see, then I'll dip out. But yeah, that one really stuck out to me too. I think, yeah, for me, yeah, my favorite is probably like the Medusa scene as well. I think for me too, it's like the maybe we can kind of segue into the 81 versus 2010 here and
Sure.
kind of use Medusa as a segue. And I think this is, I want to start this off with a quote from Harryhausen that really stuck out to me. As he said that when you make, and this is talking about like movies today done with more CGI versus like the more practical stuff and like the work he did, is that when you make fantasy too real, it loses the quality of a nightmare, of a dream. And I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, cause like, me, right? If I've made it quite obvious that I'm not hiding the fact that that's kind of like one of my biggest digs on like modern movies that are like sci-fi, monster flicks, or anything like that, is like the heavy use of CGI and just how they just don't age well, or maybe just not done very well. And it's like, that's it. So when we talk about Medusa, we have the 81 version of Medusa. Like, it's, like the movements are like kind of, they're not very fluid, but they're very, and like the intent of the movements are done very well.
Hmm.
Versus like Medusa in the 2010 Clash of the Titans. It's like shit is just all over the place. Like the fucking snakes are flying everywhere, and like Medusa is just like jumping and bouncing all around the screen. And it's like, it doesn't seem, like he says in that quote, like it just kind of loses that quality of it. Like it's not fanning. So it's, they try to make it look too real to the point where it's not. Like there's too many things like going on at once that I think it's hard for me personally anyway, and maybe that's for others, that it just doesn't look the greatest. It loses that loses any kind of quality that you can have in that creature that would terrify you in the littlest bit, but
Yeah, and
versus like the stop motion one.
well, and piggybacking off of that, I think the quote you have lays it out perfectly, and why it works better in the original is because the the story of Medusa is that, she was a cursed woman. I think it was Athena, but pardon me if that wasn't the actual goddess who transformed her. But when you have the stop motion, she looks like a transformed, bastardized version of a woman. It's you your mind can see that, this used to be a person and something is wrong with her, and
Yeah.
it's kind of enhanced by that myth. Whereas I think you're right, when you go full CGI, you lose that, because um if all the creatures are digital, then no transformation ever took place because they were digital to begin with. So there was no creating of a monster. The whole thing is a monster. You know what I mean?
Yes. Like that point.
Yeah. And I think too that I just had this thought while I'm looking at the cast of the original and the cast of the 2010 version. What I remember most of the 2010 version is not the scenes with the monsters and the, you know, animation. That's what I remember most of Clash of the Titans. Probably unfortunately for like Harry Hamlin and Judy Bowker, who I start this movie, I'm like, my God, those are two of the most beautiful actors in Hollywood. And
Yeah.
they just didn't have the careers to back that up, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
And but when I think of 2010, I think of the actors first and not the effects. So, I think of Liam Neeson as Zeus. He has a great performance there. Ray Fiennes as Hades, who just, delivers another great performance as the villain, and, kind of on and on down the list. So that kind of stood out to me too, that, when I think of the original, which had great actors like the great Laurence Olivier, Maggie Smith, I
Yeah.
don't think that's not the first thing I think of. Whereas with 2010,
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's the
Exactly.
one where Liam Neeson is Zeus and blah blah blah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, you did you like the remake of Clash?
I did. I mean, it when taken compared to the original, I could see why they would, um, you know, re re reinvigorate the visuals and do that. Like, I understand the boardroom discussion about that. I do, but
Right.
ultimately, it's good. Well, I wouldn't say it's good. It's fun because I'm a sucker for anything Greek mythology anyway. And like I said, it does have
Yeah.
good actors, but just
Yeah.
not in the same way. If you had to give me the choice between the two, I'll take the original every time. So that's where I kind of landed on that. Have you seen the 2010 remake?
Yeah, I watched most of it. There were some parts where I found boring, so I would just kind of skip through. But yeah, I mean, I was underwhelmed, but um, yeah, I was more just kind of looking at it to make comparisons between the two films, just as far as like the story. And so I think in 2010 we get Hades, right, which Ray Fiennes plays, and we didn't get that. We didn't get Hades in the original.
True.
So some things are kind of like, one to one. Some things are a bit different, but um, yeah, I mean, I could see it being like, it's maybe a fun movie to kind of have on a big screen and pump up the volume. But yeah, but again, when I go back to the 81 version of Clash of Titans, it's not really a movie I would recommend to watch. Like, say you need to go back and watch it, it'd probably be more entertaining. I would say go back and watch a YouTube video of like the whatever 10 best scenes from the film, because that will probably do enough to like give you an idea of the film.
Hmm.
If you're a fan of like films like Jason of the Argonauts, stuff like that, I mean, definitely you know, give it a run. I would definitely watch it, but um, yeah, outside of the monster stuff, like time has not been very kind to this film, and I don't think it was that great to begin with, and from the like when it was first released. So, um, and like the like you said too, like the cast, you have like these A-list actors like playing like the gods, but I was imagining like, oh, they just must have got all these people in like a room and like filmed all this in one day, like,
Right. Yeah, that's
because
true.
they don't interact with anyone else really in the cast. So
Yeah, it's
if they,
they're on the Hollywood film set, and then you have like Harry Hamlin and Burgess Meredith on location.
yeah,
And I think you're right.
yeah, I want to I just thought about this too, like that first moment where we meet Burgess's character when he comes out with the mask and he's kind of like making like that screeching, kind of trying to scare Perseus away. I had a moment of like, oh, that's like was very kind of like Obi-Wan esque
Oh
at
yeah,
that moment. But
New Hope
when
Obi-Wan.
yes, yep.
I like that.
So I
Yeah,
got
and
like two Star Wars references in this one.
well, and not unlike Luke and Obi-Wan, this is a kind of a trope in Greek mythology too, but when the hero is given an ancient artifact or weapon and then they lose it, and it
Yeah,
drives me absolutely crazy. I'm like, a god gave you that helmet and you left it in the swamp. Come on,
yeah,
Perseus.
right.
That's like Luke when he's fighting Vader and then he loses his lightsaber. I'm like, come on,
Yeah,
Luke. That's like the last saber of the Jedi Order. So,
right. I just chalked it up, to like young and dumb, right? Like,
right, right. No, I think you're
as
absolutely right. Not being able to appreciate the importance of the artifact they're given.
right, well, I got this sword and shield and this helmet this easily. I mean, chances that I'm gonna get another one, right? Looking pretty good,
Right. Oh,
right?
and he leaves the freaking shield in the amphitheater. Like,
Yeah,
dude, what are you doing?
we got really excited about the cape, right, or the helmet. Is that what makes him disappear?
Yeah, the
It's
helmet.
the helmet, yeah. I mean, that's like you get like a toy like that, but like, dude, I'm gonna I'm gonna use this to its fullest, you know,
Right.
capabilities, right? Just put it on, he was gone, you know?
Right.
It's like giving the kid the keys to the new car, man, like
You're right. It's yeah, there's two kinds of kids and heroes. There's the kids that leave their bikes on the sidewalk, and then there's the kid who walks it into the garage. And I know which one I want to
yeah,
be.
right. Uh, I didn't have a garage, and I walked it to, the steps,
Yes.
and then somebody stole my bike.
Oh, damn it.
No, actually, no, no. That's what we thought happened, but actually, what happened is I rode the bike to the mall and I left it in the bike rack.
Oh, did you uh,
um, I mean, I was what 11, like
right. Well, and you can't I mean, bike thieves are savage. You sometimes you
oh
can't lock
yeah,
it up in the garage and that doesn't even matter. So,
right, right.
yeah.
Bikes are like gold. All right, so before we end here, I had one question: Is Harryhausen is he maybe the creator of some of the greatest monster movies ever?
Oh, man.
Or
See,
may or maybe make this two questions, or greatest monsters ever?
I think that that's probably true. Let's see. The I think his biggest comp would be probably the Godzilla films, right? So the creator of help me out here, who were who was the who was the mind behind the original Godzilla suit? Because I have the original film. It's Ishiro Honda is the director, but I'm looking for the special effects team here. I know some nerd is just screaming at their device right now. It's creature design. Let's see, designed by Teizo Toshimitsu and Akira Watanabe under
Ah,
Eiji Tsuburaya's supervision.
all right.
Yes. So I would say they probably could give Harryhausen a run for his money, but I mean, apart from them, I'm kind of hard pressed to come up with a comp. I guess what you could say for modern movies, probably, and I don't know how involved he is with the creation, but definitely the acting is Andy Serkis. He's probably
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
granted he's not doing the modeling. I guess his body is the model. You know, like him and
Yeah,
Doug
true.
Jones,
True.
guys who play
True.
monsters. And there's that actor. Shoot, what was his name? He was the body of the Predator in Harry and the Hendersons. Um,
Oh, damn.
that's gonna bug me. I
But
can't
that
think.
guy.
That guy. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I mean, yeah, I love the original. But again, I don't know how much like my nostalgia for that is, you know, saying that. So
Have
again, I
you?
would say go back and maybe watch some YouTube clips from the original. If you think it looks bad or if it's not your type, maybe go for the 2010. If you think you can handle it, and if you like the style too of like those Jason and Argonaut films or Sinbad films, give this a shot. So it's another good look at which I think is probably one of the coolest creative minds in this type of film um, in our history. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, and I'd love to. I'd love to circle back if you watch this with the boys. I'd love to hear what they think of it.
I didn't, but it's my plan. Like I think a couple more years.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know why I'm saying a couple more years. What did we just watch with them? Like we watched Jurassic Park about a month ago,
Uh huh.
and they loved that. I had moments where I was like, "Is this too much?" But I was down. I mean, they love like Nightmare Before Christmas, and so yeah, maybe I need to. I think they're at the age though where it's like, if it's like they need the animation maybe to hold their attention more for like a longer movie, but They watched Jurassic Park too, though. I did have to fast forward Jurassic Park though to where you started seeing dinosaurs to kind of keep their attention. But
That's fair. There's a lot of
yeah,
science in that first 45 minutes.
yes. So maybe in a couple years, we'll have like a nice home theater set up in our basement, and we can shake the walls with some. Actually, that's probably not the movie that will shake the walls because the sound effects aren't that great. But
That's true.
we could blast that whimsical music that plays through it.
Yeah.
But cool. I don't think I have much to add on top of that. Do you, Jamie?
I don't either. Oh, I had one quick fact. I would be remiss
Yeah.
if I didn't mention it. So we've been watching Monsters Inc. That's on Evie's rotation right now. And
Sweet.
yeah, it's a great one. There's a line in the film too where Mike makes a dinner reservation for him and Celia, and the name of the restaurant is Harryhausen's. So I thought that
Oh,
was
that's awesome.
pretty fun.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I mean, just if you're out there listening and just look up anything Harryhausen. If you get a chance, watch the documentary on Harryhausen. And the cool thing about that documentary too is it does, interviews too with like your Del Toro's and your other, directors like Spielberg's and across the board. So definitely if you watch it, there's probably somebody in there that is a director of a film that influenced a movie that you love. So check it out. And on that note, thank you for downloading this episode of Movie Time Machine Monster Closet Edition. New episodes drop on Fridays. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at Movie Machine Pod. And if you want to send us any questions or comments or feedback you want to leave about the show, you can send an email to movietimemachine@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.